Okay, this is my audience: Will, Jake, Pogson. Okay. The Roman Colosseum, also known as the Roman Death Trap, was a formidable structure by the Roman Empire. It was one of the biggest structures ever made in ancient times. It was actually recorded that an estimated 1 million people had died in the arena, and hundreds of thousands of animals had been killed as well. The Roman Empire was actually blamed for many species being extinct because of the games themselves. The Roman Empire before the Colosseum was torn into civil war because Emperor Nero, who was very corrupt, and he had actually committed suicide and left the nation without an emperor. So everyone was just in this big civil war. And during this time, there was the Jewish rebellion in Jerusalem, and a politician in general, Vespasian, was over there fighting. And during the time of the civil war, he had come back to a nation that had just been completely torn apart, but he had all these riches, and he had brought them to the empire, and then actually became the emperor himself. So Emperor Vespasian. His first act in acting was to make the Colosseum itself. And he had used all the gold and riches they had taken from the Jewish temples to pay for it, as well as 12,000 Jewish captives they had taken from the war to build the temple, or the Colosseum. The Colosseum was actually built very fast. It was built from 72 AD to 80 AD, and it was one of the fastest built in like ancient history. And through this, they had very bad conditions for the Jewish captives, as they were worked to death, super heated conditions, and they were just hauling stone from miles and miles away. Shortly after him enacting to build the Colosseum, he had died, and his son had become the successor, and it was then Emperor Titus that was emperor now. He was actually there for the very first games. He had made it to where there would be 100 straight days of Colosseum games, and actually in the first day they had killed over 5,000 animals in one day. The Colosseum was also known for having a hypogeum, which is pretty much trap doors around the Colosseum floor that would release tigers and elephants and such to surprise people. They said in the mornings they would have man versus animal, noon would be executions like crucifixions and beheadings, and then the afternoon would be the main events, which would be gladiators fighting. They also had naval battles. They were actually able to flood the floor and put ships and have naval battles in there. And a lot of people died from drowning because not a lot of people knew how to swim. So pretty much some great gladiators worth mentioning at this time. One being Marcus Atilius, which was actually a free man, which was actually a free gladiator who came and fought in these battles, and was just a famous gladiator. He had fought many undefeated other gladiators as a new fighter himself. Gladiators, history behind gladiators, according to an article called Blood and Sand, is that politicians that were really rich would buy these slaves and then train them in these gladiator schools to become these fierce warriors. They would actually be better than most Roman soldiers themselves because of how much they were trained to win a lot of money for these politicians themselves. And a lot of gladiators also fought for their own freedom. One of the greatest warriors was Flama, who was captured and forced to fight for over 13 years. He was considered the most feared gladiator because he had fought in 34 battles, man and animal, and had won all 34. He denied his freedom 4 times from the emperor himself, and was actually imprinted onto the Roman coin. So, and then there's another one named by Carpophagus, who was a famous gladiator for training the animals to fight against other gladiators. He had actually trained a lion that was known for killing over 200 men in the arena itself. They say that he was such a crazy warrior and knew animals so well that he was actually out there killing rhinoceroses, elephants, lions, tigers with his bare hands. And all these poets were saying about how he was able to do it with his bare hands. To conclude this is that the Roman Empire was such a fierce nation, and it had got brought into ruins by a civil war, and then Emperor Vespasian had come in and really just ramped it up and showed how much power the Roman Empire really has and how much wealth they have. And now I'll start my Q&A. So, Will?
Of all the good gladiators, which one was your favorite?
I would say my favorite gladiator would be Carpophagus because he was able to kill these crazy animals with his bare hands, according to poets and historians. And Jake?
So is the Colosseum still standing today?
The Colosseum's actually standing on the outside, but it's also been, ruined a lot from time, just decades of, erosion and such. So it's still there, but it's not all there at the same time.
Have you been to
Buxton?
the Coliseum?
No, I have not been to the Colosseum, although I would like to. And that concludes my speech.